Because it doesn't even matter if the image itself is artificial, right? It could be a deep fake or a repurposed photo or a sort of a likeness that looks real, right?
Yeah, and I think that that's something that is increasing, right? People are able to alter images in a way that could be like part of you, but it's used in a way that you didn't consent to or approve and in a sexualized way.
Welcome back to This is Van Color. Almost 3 years ago, we welcomed our guest tonight, Nikki Sharma, the Attorney General of British Columbia, to talk about a groundbreaking new law in BC, the Intimate Images Protection Act. The law is simple. If an intimate image of you is shared online without your consent, you have the right to have it taken down, and even if you had consented, you can later withdraw that consent and demand that the image be removed from social media. And it doesn't just apply to real photos. It explicitly includes deep fakes and AI-generated images. Crucially, instead of forcing victims through expensive and slow court battles, the process is fast-tracked through BC's Civil Resolution Tribunal. So why is X, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, now challenging that very system? Returning to the show to explain what's happening and what's at stake, the Attorney General of British Columbia, Nikki Sharma. Minister Sharma, so nice to see you.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me back.
I am really happy that we can follow up on this because it seems like this Intimate Images Protection Act has been working as intended. It seems to be working pretty well. But recently there was a case where the Civil Resolution Tribunal ordered X, formerly known as Twitter, to take down an intimate image of someone. X complied, but now they're filing a legal challenge against the whole system and against BC. Can you explain what X's problem is? What's happening?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I can fully answer their problem, but the reality is the system's in place to protect victims. So what happens when the CRT makes a determination is they've found that there's an image and it's intimate and it's without the person's consent. And when that's on any social media platform, they issue an order saying, please take it down. Not please, it's a court order that says take it down.
You have to take it down. Okay.
So, and that's been going really well. We've had over 500 cases.
Oh, wow.
And where that CRT has been processing these things. And we have a special relationship with a lot of actual companies like Meta that just trusted that we take it down if there's an order. And with X, with one case, they decided to only geofence it around a certain area. So they took it down only around a certain area, like around Canada. And of course, that's not enough when it's your intimate image.
So they took down the image in Canada, but not the rest of the world.
Not the rest.
So if you had a VPN
that's
or
right.
you were accessing Twitter from somewhere else, you could still see it. I don't understand the point because if you're taking down the image, you've already gone through that work, right?
That's right. And the consequence of that is that image was still up largely in, the rest of the world. So CRT issued a fine against them and said, you owe this much a day and it maxes out at 100,000. And they're challenging that fine in court. So I've asked my team the fine and the application of our law, saying that we don't have jurisdiction to apply outside of our border. So it's very concerning to me that instead of, first of all, just taking it down, because it would be, I would think, the right thing to do if you know you have an image on your site that's non-consensual, an intimate image, just to take it down. And we have many companies that do that all the time. Instead of doing that and challenging in court, very concerning. So we'll be meeting them in court to that challenge to defend our legislation and really stand up for those victims that want to make sure the protection is everywhere.
Seems like a really bad public relations look for them as well. But ultimately, is this about one image or is this about a global tech company challenging whether or not it has to accept the authority of a subnational government like the province of British Columbia?
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think, bigger issues in this lawsuit that they're challenging. And I think there's a lot of questions in here about the kind of society we want and the types of protections people can have when they're online. Governments around the world have been stepping up to take better action and more protections for people online, particularly when it comes to something like this. Like, it has devastating consequences up to, the suicides that have happened in BC when there's no protections around, particularly the young people, for this type of crime. and harm. So, we need to step up as governments to make sure that we set standards of conduct for these companies and that they abide by them through things like what we did with the Intimate Images Protection Act. So, we're going to keep defending our law. We're going to keep making sure that we can strengthen protections in BC. And we think that it's part of not only you have a corporate social conscience that you would just take them down. And if we can't rely on that, then we'll rely on the courts.
Yeah. Now, the last time that we spoke, you were very explicit that it wasn't just quote unquote real photos. If someone was doctoring photos to create intimate images, either through AI or Photoshop or whatever, that also was, you could take those photos down. We've seen X and Twitter, or I should say formerly known as Twitter, we've seen them being in the news where their AI bot is actually producing sexualized photos of women and sometimes even children against their will, against their consent. Just to be clear, those photos that have been produced by the X platform by asking their AI chatbot, those are illegal, right?
It would, our legislation would have apply to all those images. So if somebody in BC has an image of themselves that's on that platform that's altered and it's an intimate image, they could apply for a takedown order. And we would send it to X and say, take it down. It's without consent and it's on your platform, including deepfakes.
How long does that process work if once you file, if you have an intimate image up there against your consent and you file for it to be taken down? How long does that take?
We wanted to make it as quick as the justice system, actually faster than it usually is. So we can, I think sometimes the same day images are taken down. Wow. That's how fast it is. Their average is a few weeks, and it depends just on sometimes you need information or whatever. So it's lightning fast in the justice system because we wanted it to be like a victim-led process where, speed is of the essence. When there's an image of you out there, right? You need a system that's going to help you take that image back quickly with legal orders. So I've been really pleased at how quick that the CRT's been able to run the process. And I want to let everybody know it's out there for them, right? To get that protection. And we've helped a lot of people through that process.
Federal AI Minister Evan Solomon has said that while he's not considering a ban on X, the federal government will be looking at introducing new legislation for the same type of protections that your legislation provides. Is there something that the federal government can do that your government simply cannot, just based on, orders of government? Oh
yeah, I've been calling on the federal government to do. They had an online harms bill that kind of died last government. And really, it's just about doing what they have better tools than us, and they can set a standard to say, here's what it means to be acting in the best interest of children in Canada. If you're a social media platform, here's the standard, and we're setting it. And we're going to oversee it. We're going to have an oversight body that says, if you're not living up to that standard, we're going to step in. And I think we've seen that in a lot of other jurisdictions, up to the ban in Australia with the 16 and under that have really set a clear limit. So I think instead of experimenting on this generation of kids to see what the harms are, that we need to step in as government, and the federal government has the better tools for that, to step in and say, here's our standard, right?
I know that you're not lobbying for the complete ban of any social media network, including X/Twitter. However, is there a red line for you? So let's say any social media platform continues to defy your Intimate Images Protection Act. Is there a line where you go, once this line is crossed, I have to start lobbying the federal government to actually have this platform banned?
Yeah, interesting question. I think it goes to the federal government of having some kind of a standard out there so we can actually hold these companies to this level of standard. And, I do wonder about that. Like, what's our limit when it comes to online platforms and their ability to very quickly cause serious amounts of harm? And if they're not willing to listen to very reasonable requests and a law like very simple, like the one that we have, which is take down the image because it's there up on your platform without consent, then what are our tools, right? There has to be a balance between the protection of the public and the public interest and individuals that are harmed, and everybody's right to have their freedom of expression on social media and all the fun ways that shows up in our society.
Yeah. And emphasis on fun, not ways that harm people.
Yeah, exactly.
Minister Sharma, a pleasure to have you on tonight. Thanks so much for clarifying this, and good luck with battling X in court.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you covering this topic. It's so important. I want everybody to know that the supports are out there, including victim supports. So if you have an image of yours that's being distributed without your consent, online or in person, you have a remedy here in BC.
Folks, that was BC Attorney General Nikki Sharma. Now, after some business, If a global tech platform is willing to challenge BC's authority outright, is it time to ask the uncomfortable question? Should Canada ban X, formerly known as Twitter? Lance from the Surfs will give us his take up next.